Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to our live feed update for September 21st. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and with me today is Chantele. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. I really can't believe that we've gone through pretty much an entire season. We have a week and a day left. Survivor's starting tomorrow. It's end of September almost. It's just like the summer flew by. It's been a great season, and the ending is not as bad as I was expecting it to be. So I'm happy to talk about it today.
All right. Well, we are here to update you on everything that happened yesterday on the Big Brother 23 live feeds. It was day 76 in the house. And oh boy. So Xavier's the HOH. He also won the veto. He is going to not use the veto, which is going to leave Big D as the sole vote to evict. Xavier has convinced Big D to evict Kyland. And Big D has been raising quite a stink about it because he doesn't want to do it. He wants to evict Azah because Kyland has done so much more and deserves to be there. Kyland and Big D got into a big argument about Big D's cooking the day before. And today, Big D's going to get into an argument with Azah, where he plays the role of Kyland.
Okay, I have a question. Do you think that there is a chance that Big D was using these two fights so he has an excuse to evict either of them? So like whatever he decides to do, he'd be like, well, we weren't getting along in the end, so you shouldn't have expected me to want to keep you in this game. And so maybe just like giving him a way out?
I don't think so. I think that these fights are popping up because of the underlying tension and stress that's occurring because of the situation that they're in.
I'm like just hoping.
Like I think he's stressed about the situation. Kyland's stressed about the situation. Azah is stressed about the situation and also just like fed up with all of it. And so I think that it's a result of that rather than something intentionally done.
Oh, we could dream, can't we? I was just hoping that like he really has been doing something behind the scenes that I just don't know and I haven't noticed and he can argue with me about because
well, yeah. I mean, he's done a lot.
So much.
So many things.
My biggest excitement, though, is that he says at one point, I don't know, when one of his long rants about Azah, but he does say that he can't wait until he gets outside of the house so he can see what the fans think of him. And if he's like legendary status, and I'll be like, legendary, not in the way that you want it to be.
You will be remembered. So we started the day. Really, the only contributions Kyland really made for the day. He did have some camera talks. Usually, the big thing in the day is Kyland's big, talk to the cameras. He did have some ridiculous ones, but we'll get them out of the way quickly. The primary ridiculous one that most people have been interested in is that. This is in the middle of what we're going to talk about, which is Big D and Azah's initial argument. It just cuts to Kyland, and he's just like, shout out to former President Obama and Michelle. What's up? I'm not like saying I'm expecting us to hang out or anything, but I'd love to meet you two or get a shout out or at least like a like on Twitter or Instagram.
I mean, I think what's really happening with him, per se, is that he's just delusional and he thinks that what he's doing is grander than it actually is. And I think he thinks that people are just rooting for him and that everybody's watching him and all eyes are on Kyland, and he doesn't, because he's in that house, and he just thinks that he's like the center of everybody's world in this house. And I think he thinks that translates into the outside world because it ain't true. I don't think that Obama knows who you are, Kyland. I'm sorry. At all.
Yeah. He says, and while I'm at it, Will and Jada, if you guys send you.
Well, he could dream. I mean, Big D also was just talking about how he's going to be so, have a TV show and take Julie's job and all this stuff. So they both have illusions of grandeur for sure.
Yeah. He's also going to say later, I guess we'll get to that later because it's relevant to a conversation that happens later. But so Big D, Azah, and Xavier are going to be talking some more. And they really need to just stop talking about the season because they, first of all, keep exposing their ignorance as to what actually happened in the season. Second of all, it causes them to argue because they're trying to figure out who did it. And the answer is Tiffany. The answer is none of them, but they keep trying to, all three of them, like, no, but I did that though. And so they're talking about the season, and Azah starts talking about the plan that she had. You remember we talked about this, the plan she had during the prior to the roulette week, where she wanted to put 2 cookout members up on the block to reduce the chances of a cookout member being randomly rouletted onto the block. Wasn't the best idea. You could see the logic in it, but she talks about like, oh, that's what I would have done if I was HOH. And Xavier's like, that wouldn't have worked. That was not a good idea. And Big D's like, exactly. Like, this is why I can't take Azah seriously in this game. He says, by the way, says Azah, she's there in that he's like only, you know, he's only dressing Xavier. This is why I can't take Azah serious in this game. I told Azah several times it was no good, but you know Azah, there's no point in trying to argue with her. And I got no time. I had no time for her that day.
I mean, this was the beginning of me just like in a constant eye roll when I was watching these conversations. I'm just like, Big D, like at least she's contributing an idea that you can workshop and troubleshoot and see like where the holes are here. And like, she's thinking about the game. I haven't seen Big D think about the game at all. All he thinks about is like, I want to get out Tiffany. That's pretty much the only thing that he's done. And protecting Brittany that one time from Tiffany and something that wasn't even going to be bad for them. So it's just kind of like, Big D, look, I don't know what game you think you're playing. Sorry, go ahead.
You know, you don't need to think about the game when you've already got it all figured out. That's
right, of course.
Yeah,
you got to the end. Yeah, because you're so
exactly. Cool. And so Oz is like, X, do I not listen in conversations? X is like, well, I mean, we have conversations sometimes, but eventually we get around to what we should do. Well, Big D doesn't think I listen. Well, I'm sure you guys have different conversations though. It's like, she's like, yeah, we do. Most of our conversations revolve around arguing about Kyland. And Big D's like, you know what, Azah? When we get out of this house, we can sit down at my house. You can make us some homemade pizza, and we can watch Big Brother with some glasses of wine and liquor, and then we can discuss. Because with both of us being here in this house together, and you not having seen all the decisions and all of the discussions and plans being made, there's no use in having this conversation. And I said that, and I'm gonna leave it at that. Xavier says, fair enough.
I want that to happen.
Okay, all right. Like they're both like, okay. He's gonna leave it at that. It's just so hard. It's just too hard, Azah. I love you, but it's too hard until we watch it back. I can't go down the list of all the things that happen. There are so many things that you don't even know about that I planned behind your back that you don't even know about. So it's no use.
And I actually would love if they live streamed them watching Big Brother and then maybe live stream them watching some of the updates, because I'm just like, I want him to see what we actually thought of his game and see like, because I feel like he wants to watch it so he can piece together and be like, oh, see, I did that. And I did that, and I did that, and there's gonna be nothing. Like he's never really on the show other than like his sleeping segment, his calling Tiffany the B word, and not doing anything really game oriented at all. So I would love to see that live streamed.
I mean, it would just be full of Big D. Why didn't they show when I did this? They what? This is a terrible edit.
The edit.
Yeah. It's at this point that Xavier's like, yeah, I'm gonna just see ya. He leaves. And they start talking about Kyland, and he's talking about like, because she hasn't seen all the things that Kyland has done either. And she's like, I've seen the things that Kyland has done, and I'm not a fan of them. I don't like what Kyland has done. He's not very nice. And he's just like, you just don't know. You don't know. But you don't know all the other things that he's done. Like if Xavier had done, if you had worked with Xavier on a ton of things to help protect me, and then I was like, oh, Xavier hasn't done anything, and then you were like, no, you just haven't seen it, then I'd be like, oh yeah, I guess I haven't seen it. But no, that's what it is. And she's like, yeah, because I've never tried to correct you about all the things you say about Tiffany, have I? I haven't done that. And then Xavier comes back in, and she starts, and they keep arguing back and forth about Kyland. And then Xavier's like, oh, I made a mistake. Yeah, I shouldn't have come back in. I'm just gonna go. And I was like, no, you stay here, Xavier. And she says, okay, Big D, let's do this. Okay, it's too many things. Let's go week by week, and let's talk about all the things that you have done to keep me in this game. And Xavier's like, yeah, and I'm just gonna bye.
Well, it's just kind of like Big D. I think that he feels if he talks about all the things that he does, it'll make them become true. Because like even she's never really denied, like she's like, yeah, okay, so yeah, you went up on the block a couple times and maybe I could have been an option to go up on the block, but I wasn't. And she's like, maybe I had some social relationships with some people. And he tries to claim the fact that he had social relationships with them first. And that he was the one that protected her. And her relationship with them didn't matter at all. It was only his relationship with her. And he just kind of like discredits the contribution that he thinks that he made, that she actually made for herself, and just won't even allow her to have her own opinion. And so when she says like, I agree to disagree or whatever, he doesn't even take that because he doesn't like her tone when she says that. It's just so frustrating because they've been friends this whole time, and their friendship seems to be turned now on Azah as a reason for him to be a better game player, because like they were taking care of each other as friends. It's very frustrating, and I don't know how Azah is able to like hold her tongue, because I would have been flipping out.
Yeah. And so she goes week by week, and she says, look, did you feel during anyone's HOH that you had to push somebody to not put me up, Big D? He goes, well, I had to put things in place and say things, and also keep you out of the loop so that you would not become a target. So I would be a target over you in the Jokers. And she says, you keep saying that, but what are the examples? Says, well, week 3, Alyssa really wanted to put you up, right? And I convinced them not to. I was like, hey, what about Whitney? Like I got them to look at Whitney. And I kept you off the block. And also I had to keep you in dark about a lot of things so you would not have to lie about things. She said, okay, 1 week with Alyssa. Okay, what else? Lots of things. Lots of so many things that I kept you in the dark about. And she said, like who? Like what? I had relationships with Claire, with SB, with DX, all these people who were HOHs after Christian. Like, which of them did you need to convince to not come after me? Because I had relationships with them. And he says, no. I had a thing with DX. I had Kyland working on DX. So I was doing that. And she said, DX was never coming for me. I had a great relationship with him. He told me so many things in this game. The only people coming for me were Christian and Alyssa. So who else was it that was coming for me that you convinced not to? Because the only other people are in the cookout. He's like, well, no. I mean, okay. He's like, he's getting real pouty. He's like, oh, look, I agree. Okay. I don't have anything to say.
Do you think that maybe when he was taking his naps for most of the season, that he was dreaming of a game that he didn't actually play, and that he's just a little bit confused with what is reality and what is his dream? And I'm actually like, I'm not even saying this as a joke. Like, I'm like, because he didn't leave that bed really. So for him to think that conversations happen that didn't happen and scenarios happen that didn't happen, like I only can think that he must have dreamt it up, or like created a way for him to believe that this to be so, like he has such vigor when he's saying it, and it's so far from the truth. And I'm just wondering, like, is he dreaming it realistically?
I mean, maybe there's I don't remember what it's called. There's like a psychological effect that like rich and successful people, no matter how they got their money or success, they tend to feel like they did something to deserve it. And so they often explain like, this is how you become successful because it's how I became successful, without realizing that usually there's a lot of luck involved. And I feel like that's like what's happening with Big D. Like he came into this game with just like everybody just did all the work and he benefited from it. And you could say the same thing of Xavier. You could say the same thing of Ozza. And they all, to some degree, feel like I did something to make this happen. But like, because things worked out for them, they're like, yeah, and I did something. And this happens to all kinds of players. The less you know about the game, the more likely you are to think that you were the one to make your good fortune happen because you don't know any better. It's really interesting. It's I mean, that's the Bader Meinhof effect of like, the worse you are at something, the more likely you are to think you're good at it because you don't know enough to know that you're bad.
Okay.
So yeah, I just feel like there's some. I mean, it's not that uncommon. It's just particularly extreme with Big D.
Fair. Well, it's just like watching him. I'm just like, how can you not like he's saying with such conviction that I'm like, you really didn't participate that much in this game. Like really, like you were sleeping and laying down a lot of the season. And so it's like the things that weren't being, that he couldn't see outside of his vantage point, like he's claiming that was his doing. And it's just like, it's shocking to me. But that theory makes sense though as well.
Yeah. I think I got that wrong. What's the name of that? I think I got some effects mixed up, but that's okay because I'm not claiming to be an expert on psychological effects.
I will look it up.
I know enough. No, I'm not good at that. Exactly. So he says, look, you always say you want the real. So I guess you don't want the real. I'll just have to SB Alyssa you. Okay? That's what I'll have to do in the future. She's like, okay, fine. Dunning-Kruger, thank you. That's what I was looking for. Not Bader-Meinhof. Bader-Meinhof is the one where you see something and you feel like you see it more frequently after you see it once. That thing.
Okay.
Anyway. She says, okay, look, if that's your opinion, great. You've done more than me in this game. Okay, Big D? You've done more than me in this game. Fine. And then it's quiet. There are things you've done in this game. Look, okay, Big D. If you say you're not putting me down, fine. I'm good. I'm at peace with what I've done in this game. That's all we need to do.
He just wants to create some drama. Like he's bored. Like he just let the girl be. Like, okay, so you did everything. That's fine. Like it is fine that you did everything then. If you believe that and she doesn't believe that, but she says, you know what, it's fine. Like if like, thank you so much for it. Did he want to thank you or did he want her to be like, thank you? And like, what did he want from these conversations other than like what he got? Like, okay, so you did everything. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, he wanted to be able to exist in the reality where he gets to just put her down and her not be upset about it. And she's like, stop doing that. And he's like, what do you want me to lie to you? What do you want from me? And it never really gets any further than that. So Big D leaves. Xavier comes in. She cries a little bit. She says, I mean, it's very frustrated. She's very frustrated. And Xavier says, like, you know, Big D, he's done some things, but maybe not as many as he says he has. Just let him go off. Just let him. He doesn't realize he's putting you down. Just let him be him. And you know, just let it go. Just drop it. And then they start talking about Kyland, and that's when Xavier's like, oh, wait a minute, no, don't drop it with Kyland, because oh my god, it is so dumb what he's doing about Kyland. I cannot believe him. I'm asking him to do something that benefits him, evict Kyland, and he is like, oh, like so hard. It's so hard for me to do this. Like I get that you have a crush on the man, but send him home. Geez.
Well, and I mean, Xavier has a point here, being that the fact that it's good for your game, and it's not as good for my game as it is for your game, Big D. Like, why aren't you taking the option so that you have every person that's left in the game is going to be taking you to the end? Why isn't that your objective since you're such a mastermind?
Yeah. He tells Ozzy, if I have to use the veto on you, I will.
Will he though?
It really doesn't seem like. I mean, he keeps threatening it to the cameras, to Ozzy, but he doesn't seem like he is actually going to, which I don't understand at all.
He should just do that, but I think that he was worried about taking away that power from Big D. Just with like how Big D sees himself as this big player, and he wants to make this big decision, and it would be taking a move away from him. And Big D's been talking a lot about like, oh my God, I'm not going to get any votes, and oh my God, like nobody's going to see what I've done. And so I'm thinking he's just like doesn't want to take away a vote from him. He's just trying to be kind.
But it's just, I guess so. It's just like who cares?
I don't care. I don't know why he cares.
Big D is not winning that final 3 HOH. He's not going to choose who he takes. You know who might? Ozzy.
100%. No, I mean, I would have been like, Ozzy, you got to do this for me, girl. Like, let's go, me, you, final 2. Like, make a deal, whether you keep it or not. Like, it's final 3. It's $750,000. Like, she'll understand why, even though she'll be hurt or pissed. But like, make the deal with Ozzy, take her off the block, say, sorry, Big D, you were waffling too much back and forth, and, just make sure that that's going to happen. And I think that's what I want anyways, and I've been praying for it, but I don't think it's going to happen.
I mean, in classic Xavier fashion, Big D is trying his absolute hardest to convince Ozzy to take Xavier to the final 2 instead of himself, with all of this nonsense that he's spewing toward Ozzy. But it's still.
She wouldn't do that though, right?
I don't think so. But I mean, Big D is really pressing her patience.
It's like, oh, like, you can walk all over me and I'm still going to take you to the end. Like, it's so frustrating. And like, especially because he thinks he's done so much and he has done so little in my eyes, but he just gets to be mean, berate her, make her feel like garbage. And she's still going to give him like a big paycheck if she gets that final HOH. And he's just so ungrateful in this situation.
Mm-hmm. So Big D is going to talk to Xavier, and Xavier is he's still trying to convince Big D to vote out Kyland, because Xavier doesn't see that, like, Big D is not wavering on evicting Kyland. He just wants to be able to like feel bad about it, and be right about feeling bad about it. But Xavier and Ozzy don't want him to feel bad about it, because why should he? Because it's good for him, and his best friend is the other person on the block. And so Xavier, I think from Big D's point of view, he's feeling like his feelings aren't being heard in terms of, or validated in terms of like how bad he feels about doing this. They're like, you shouldn't feel bad, but he does. And so that's where a lot of that conflict is coming from. I personally don't think there's any chance he doesn't evict Kyland at this point, unless, something big happens with Kyland convincing him or something. But that's in terms of the Kyland decision, where that's coming from. But Xavier's going to come to him and be like, hey, did I ever tell you about when Kyland said to me that you are capable of doing things, but that you don't do things?
Yeah, I
Did you
mean,
hear about that?
Yeah, I mean, when I was watching him bring this up, I'm like, he's trying to make him mad at Big D, but like he's also, Big D mad at Kyland, but he's also like kind of putting Big D down at the same time. And I don't know. I mean, I guess I understand his tactic, trying to like make Kyland be the common enemy here and like kind of reinforce that like he's got to go. He doesn't appreciate your game, but I don't know. I didn't really like the tactic though.
Yeah, he says that this is what he wants to use as the reason he doesn't use the veto, is that Kyland said once that Big D doesn't do anything. that he's capable, but he doesn't because he hasn't won anything. He hasn't had an opportunity to prove that he's done anything. And so this is going to be Xavier and Kyland giving Big D an opportunity to prove himself, to do something, to keep Kyland. And Big D's like, okay, but I have done things. Just because I haven't won anything doesn't mean I haven't done things. And I just feel like why don't you just tell him straight up that you're not using the veto? And X is like, no, you don't understand. We're gonna tell Kai that we're going to prove our loyalty to him by voting to keep him. Like, but we're not voting to keep him. Exactly. You want to wait? So you want to blindside him? Yes, it has to be a blindside. What?
Blindsides don't go over well, especially at this stage. At the beginning of the day, we see when Kylan's working out, like he's like, this is the first time he hasn't had any control in the game, but he thinks that he set himself up really well. And so I just don't think that it will go very well if he blindsides him. I mean, I guess there's not that much he can do other than his vote, but why don't they want to be honest? What's with Xavier not wanting to be honest when it doesn't matter, really?
Yeah, Xavier is like the next coming of Paul when it comes to not wanting to own his decisions and moves here.
Just be like, listen, man, like it's a lot of money. I have a lot of people that I came here to help, and this money would do so much good. I'm really sorry, man. I know I said it, but now that we're close to the end, I gotta take my shot. I can't use it on you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love it for me. Big D, once upon a time, ruined the Brent blindside and became dead to me. So if he's going to turn back around and give me a Kyland blindside, I'm going to be very happy about it. He's still dead to me. You can't come back from that. But I will appreciate it.
Oh, maybe that's something that he did that he's taking credit for, telling Brent about the blindside.
He was like, wait, Brent was blindsided? Like, he doesn't even know. All right. So Kyland is talking to the cameras, and this is he says, X keeps telling me I'm good, but I don't feel good. Like, there's something weird going on. I just don't feel like this is okay. Come on, guys. If you're gonna do the blind side, do it properly. Stop, stop giving yourself away.
Exactly. If you're going to make it happen, like I want it to be like, oh man, the blind side of the season, like, ouch, that's gonna hurt. But if it's gonna be wishy-washy, like, just tell him, allow him to have like his last couple days in the game, in the house, like just to be joyful as possible. He's probably gonna work a little bit harder to stay, but like what you're gonna do, and just make a decision. Don't be in the middle, so wishy-washy. These people.
Mm-hmm. And it's so weird. Like, does X want Kyland to go to the jury feeling like Big D screwed me over and not Xavier? Because I feel like that only makes Xavier look ineffective, especially if he plans on going to the end with Big D. Like, you're just giving Big D a move over. Like, he got one over on you. Like, you trusted him to keep Kyland in the game, and then he turned on you and evicted Kyland against your will. Is that the story he's trying to tell? Like, because that's a really weird story to the jury. Like, maybe Kyland would be like, okay, X didn't betray me, Big D did. But everybody else on the jury is going to be like, wow, Big D got one over on Xavier. Like, it's weird.
I think that everybody's starting to feel bad that Big D didn't do anything, and he thinks that he's done so much, and he wants to give him a move. It's the only thing that's kind of making sense to me with their like the three guys all together, and like, okay, let's give Big D a move. He hasn't won any competitions. Like, he doesn't know if he has any votes, maybe Brittany's votes in the jury. And so maybe he's trying to give him a move because he feels bad that it's going to be a complete shootout, like, or whatever that term is. I'm probably saying the wrong.
I mean, it's probably a lot simpler. It's probably just what we said before, which is that he just doesn't want to have to say, he doesn't want to have to deal with Kyland to his face about like, oh, I'm sending you, because it's again like when he sent Hannah home, he was like, no, I want to keep you, and then he voted her out, right? Like he's, I mean, even all the way back to the Brent week. A lot of people, and I defended the move at the time because I did think it was appropriate at the time. But a lot of people are like, why is he pretending to Brent like he's not the target when it's so obviously that he's the target? I think that Xavier just doesn't want to deal with any kind of confrontation. You see that when Big D and Ozza are arguing, he's like, can I get out of here? He just wants no pardon. He just wants to as smooth a ride as possible.
And he got lucky that he got to have such a smooth ride with everybody else working for him this entire game. But like, come on, like you're gonna win $750,000. Put yourself in a little bit of a sticky situation here. You know what I mean? Like, have a little bit of adversity, just a little bit. Just own that move, please, Xavier. Like, I'm already not really that pleased with who we're gonna be awarding the money to. Like, make me want to give it to you. Why doesn't he want me to want him to win? Why?
So they're gonna continue to hang out and talk throughout the day. Big D's gonna have more conversations with Xavier about Ozza. Ozza's gonna talk about Big D. They're gonna talk to each other. It keeps going as over and over and over. And then it just goes like late into the night. Like they're both sleeping, and then Big D gets up, and then they're called to the diary room, and the lights are still on, and it's like, what is happening? Why is it 3 a.m. and the lights are still on? And then it's 4 a.m. and Big D's out doing laundry, and Ozza's sleeping in the room, and then Big D comes in, and the lights are still. He's just doing stuff in the room. It's like, geez, man, these people are still awake. They're still like stewing on this. And Ozza's like, Big D, can I just talk to you for a second? This is like 4:15 a.m. Big Brother time. He's like, okay. She says, look, I've been doing some thinking today, and you did not carry me this season. Okay, I sincerely regret that you went up on the block that week that you went up on the block, because I think it's been eating at you and it has been affecting our relationship. And putting me down while I put you up is not okay. Oh, well, I didn't mean to make you feel put down. No, you didn't make me feel it. You put me down. I was just being real, which is what you asked for. That's not the real, though. That's your opinion. There's a difference. It's like, oh, okay. All right. I could just be quiet about it then. And once we're out of here and we get to watch things, he's like, I don't care. I don't care about watching things after. Stop acting like I didn't do anything. And when we watch it back, I'll see. You did not carry me. You did not carry me in this game, Big D. Like, okay, I don't want you to ever feel disrespected. I wasn't trying to put you down at all. That's my opinion is just different than yours. I'll just leave it alone completely.
Please. That would be great, Big D. Thank you very much. It was really interesting before this, I believe. Big D was out in the hammock and he was just talking about all the people that he's playing this game for. And the one thing that he said, he was like, women. He's like, I support women and women's rights and all this stuff. And I was like, what?
I mean, him and Frenchie, 2 peas in a pod, right? Yeah. He did. He talked to the cameras about hey, hopefully everyone likes me, and if you don't, I'm willing to have a conversation. Except I might also say "f you" in the conversation because hey, I'm Big D. It's pretty ridiculous. But I mean, he's literally Ozza is trying to stand up for herself here, and he can't even say okay, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm sorry for having seen it that way. I think that, I'm just trying to I'm feeling bad about my own game, and I'm just trying to figure out what I've done. And I've been using you as a punching bag in order to make myself feel better about me. And that's wrong of me. I shouldn't have done that. No. It's, I'm sorry for being honest to you. If you want me to lie to you, I guess that's what I'll have to do. I guess I'll just have to, okay, you don't want me to lie to you either? Well, geez, I guess all I can do then is shut up. I guess I'll just drop it entirely because you're being completely unreasonable is the implication of what he's saying, right? And he says, okay, I'm sorry. The word carried triggered you. I'm sorry for using that word. And I'm like, okay, you literally just apparently learned from your argument with Kyland the night before because you're really starting to sound like Kyland. I was just trying to be honest. And I was like, here's the thing, Big D. I didn't ask for an honest assessment of my game. You know what? I didn't ask you to tell me what you thought of my game. And you've brought it up like over and over and over and over. You just keep talking about it. And I haven't asked you to talk about it. That's not what I've wanted. And she's like, I can play. He's like, you know what? You can play the game however you want, whether it's an honest game, a riding cocktails game, or whatnot. Yes, he said it again. He says, I shouldn't have just said anything, because everybody is always convinced they're in the right in the game. It's like if I said I was the greatest tennis of all time. That's what he said. Greatest tennis of all time. No, I've never played tennis in my life, but that's my opinion. Other people would be like, no, you're not. And I'd be like, well, that's my opinion. That's my mind. So I just need to learn to shut up.
Yeah, pretty much. Like,
He's talking about her, though. He's saying that they should just shut up about it, because if she thinks she's the best tennis of all time, and everybody else sees that she's obviously not, then they should all just shut up about it.
Well, I mean, take your own advice, bud. Because you think you're the greatest Big Brother player of all time, and she doesn't really agree. So shut up about it. Yes, both of you should shut up about it, because you're both terrible. But I was surprised that Azah knows more about the game than I was giving her credit for. So they do have a conversation earlier on the evening about different seasons, and Big D knows nothing.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing. And he's trying to pretend, I feel like, Azah would give some information and he'd be like, it's like a clip that he saw maybe on YouTube. He's like, oh, is that the twin said da 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 da, or when this happened, he just name drop big moments, and he's like, oh, is it that season? Oh yeah, oh, I watched half of that season. Oh yeah, I watched that half of that season. I'm like, you didn't watch any seasons. You don't know what's going on whatsoever. You are claiming facts and being a fan, and you don't know. He's like, oh, I have to go back and watch season 12. And it's like, there's a lot of seasons that you can go back and watch, but that's not necessarily the first one I'm going to go back and watch. Big D.
My favorite part about Azah, Xavier, and Big D talking about past seasons and talking about this season is that all three of them know past seasons better than their own seasons.
Including Big D.
Even Big D, who doesn't know past seasons. So Big D says, okay, here's what we'll do. Moving forward, if I don't like a dress of yours, I'll just keep my mouth shut. If you like it, you like it. And she's like, okay, sure. But Big D, there's a difference between you saying, I don't like that dress, and constantly repeating, I hate that dress. I hate that dress. I hate that dress. It's such a terrible dress. He's like, okay, yeah. I get that. That's why I said anything around that, we don't have to touch that subject again.
Why doesn't he understand? If we're using this dress analogy, if you put on a dress that, even if it makes you feel good and you think you look good in this dress, and then you have somebody with you didn't ask them if they to comment on how you look in this dress and whether or not you should feel good looking good in this dress, and then being like, well, I just won't tell you if you look good or if you don't look good, because I'm being real. And she's like, well, you can be real, but I didn't ask, and I think I look good in this dress, and leave you alone. I don't want to have this conversation with you because I didn't ask you to tell me your opinion on how I look in this dress, and that the way I feel in this dress isn't warranted. Get out of here. Yeah. Get out of here, Big D.
He says, I don't want to touch on what you've done and what I've done ever again. She says, okay, that makes sense. You know what? I just hit a boundary. That's it. Okay. All right. Well, good night, Big D. What? Well, do you still want to talk? No, I'm good. You sure? Yeah, I'm sure. Okay. All right. Good night. Good night. Silence. This time nobody talks, but the cameras pan over to Big D, who gives him a good look. Massive eye roll.
I can't with this guy.
Big D gives a massive eye roll to the cameras, just to be clear to the audio listeners, after this conversation.
I feel like I feel bad for Ozza because like he's taking credit for like the fact that he went on the block and when Brittany sitting next to Brittany and that he took all this emotional burden this entire season and he just like carried her emotionally and I'm like you were just being a friend to each other. You guys were all in the Jokers. You guys were supporting each other because the Jokers were being seemingly targeted, or Brittany was at least, and she was somebody in your trio, and it made sense for you to one of us to sit beside Brittany to make Brittany go home. And so the fact that he's like claiming all this that Ozza didn't do it, he just took all this emotional labor, and he has his hands so dirty in this game. It's like Big D. You were just playing Big Brother. Everybody else has a similar amount of like emotional burden and stress that they've had to endure during this game. Like his isn't that much greater than anybody else's. It's just like I wish that he had a little bit better of an assessment on his game and how he's treating his friend, someone that he's claiming to be his friend. It's just not kind at all.
Yeah, it feels like we're watching like a family, right? And I made this comparison before, like Tiffany built their house, right? But like Tiffany like built their house, she built their fortune, and she passed it on to her children. And they were like, Tiffany didn't do anything to build this fortune. We are the ones that earned this money and this house. And now it's just a bunch of Tiffany's children who have inherited her money and house, and they're all fighting over who actually deserves it the most, and who actually built the house and who actually earned the money when none of them did any of that. But they're arguing, they're just constantly fighting about it. Like, no, you didn't do anything to earn this money. How dare you say that? Because deep down I know that's true, but it makes me feel bad. So you didn't do anything to earn this money.
I feel like this is a soap opera, actually. Like I'm like envisioning it like super dramatic and like, no, I did everything. No, you didn't do anything. I like it. I like this analogy.
Oh man, it's whatever. I keep saying this, but this is such a ridiculous Final Four. But here we are, and that was the day. That's the whole day was really just this big argument between Big D and Ozza. I mean, I've already said that Big D is probably the worst player ever, at least in recent history. And I say like that's made it this far because obviously there are like, I mean, even just like Frenchie, like, but like in terms of like lots of data on a player, they made it very far. They're very bad. If he somehow manages to fight Ozza into not taking him to the final two. Like, I don't even know anymore. It's a whole new scale.
Is that gonna happen? I mean, it's too much. I mean, like, obviously it could happen. Do you think that what's the percentage? Do you think that it's a possibility that he puts such a bad taste in her mouth that she doesn't even want him to get that second place money? If that was the case.
I mean, I think that if they wake up today and they apologize and they say, you know what, we got out of hand yesterday, I think it'll be fine. If Big D continues to act this way until finale night, I don't know how you can take a man like that, especially for Ozza, who doesn't really care about winning, really. I mean, she cares about bringing the person she feels the best about. And if Big D is going to make her feel terrible constantly, then I think it's theoretically possible. Now, she has not really indicated this in any way, but it just feels like it feels like where before it was completely impossible. It feels like Big D has kind of opened the door a crack here with his behavior.
Oh, Big G. I do have a question though about like scheduling wise. So like obviously Mondays are used to be when the veto ceremony would happen. And so the final three is it going to be actually live or is it going to be pre-taped? Like when are the feeds going to go down? Like, do you have any idea how that's going to work out?
So I think the final four eviction should be live on Thursday, the veto ceremony / eviction. And then Friday, I think we're expecting the recap. And then Sunday will be probably just like start of the HOH competition, and then finale.
What's happening on Wednesday or tomorrow? Like
veto
What's
competition.
on the show? Oh, the competition. Got it.
Minus the ceremony, I would imagine.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah. So,
got it.
yeah. We'll see, though. Who knows?
Well, I was just like, I couldn't completely forgot like how it works. I'm like, wait, do they do it now? And then like it's like they shut down the feeds. I just couldn't remember how things went down, but that makes sense. Thank you.
Feeds will go down. Usually, like it's way later than Big Brother Canada, so it would be like shortly before the finale, generally.
Gotcha.
But
Cool.
that's about what we. Chantele, anything else you want to bring
I
up?
don't think so. Like we went over everything that I wrote down. I just wrote down the same thing over and over and over and over again. So yeah, I mean, it's been very frustrating. I do want him to have a reality check. I do wonder for you though, are you going to let him know that you think that he's the worst player in Big Brother history or one of?
I mean, it's like I'm gonna get with Rob probably. It's assuming Big D is in the final three, so we're probably gonna get some like a 10-minute interview with him. You can't really be like in 10 minutes like you're actually the worst player I've ever seen. Like that's a little ridiculous. But if he tries to tell me how much stuff he's done, I will politely be like, actually.
I objection, Your Honor.
Yeah. But and then it's like what am I gonna do? Like a whole game review with Big D? Like
Well, you have to, right? Isn't that going to be next week? Your live feed.
I'll do a game review of Big D.
Okay. Oh, not to him though.
Yeah.
One thing though that Big D did talk about last night was like the order of how people did things in the house, like who so Kyland and Xavier, they did the most out of the cookout, like they did the most, and then he did the next most, and he's like, oh, I guess then Tiffany, and then Hannah, and then like Ozza did the least. She did the absolute least, and I'm just thinking like you're just right beside Ozza there, but doing the absolute least. Big D. I don't know how you could even conceptualize doing more than Tiffany like in this scenario, but this is just more of his illusions of grandeur.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll see where things go here with the rest of the season and with Big D and all of that. But that's what we have for you today. I will be back tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern to update you on everything that happens today on the Big Brother 23 live feeds. We are still just trucking along, waiting for the end here. And yes, I'll keep you updated on what the latest argument on the feeds is. And then later tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, we'll be live with the roundtable where we will rate this final four. Very interested to see where the ratings go here because I feel like the level of gameplay has shifted down pretty dramatically. So we'll see where the stock watch ratings go.
I hope we get a Melissa rant. That'll be fun.
Oh, I'm sure we will. Although she did just get married, so she might be
That's
feeling
true.
pretty good.
Well, no, but maybe having to like come and like catch up on like Big D arguments, like she might have a rant about that because it's just polar opposite to the blissful moments that she's had. So
well, of course, tomorrow we will also have an episode recap after the episode of Big Brother. It's going to be a late night recap. Rob will not be there. It's going to be myself, Jacob Jones, and Maggie Morgan. So that should be a fun time. Make sure you tune in for that. I'll also be live on Twitch, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong, watching Survivor live with you guys and then Big Brother as well. So if you guys are interested in hanging out, watching some shows together, come find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong. You can also find me on Twitter at Armstrong Taran, where I will tweet out the survey for tonight's Roundtable podcast. So check that out as well. Chantele, where can people find you?
I'm everywhere online, but at Fran has all my links. And if you want to go live with me on YouTube, my channel is Reality Realness with 3 S's. I go live most of the time. So come hang out and we'll talk about different shows.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us here today. And I will see all of you next time.